What's up, fellow golfer? Welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter, the golf hypnotherapist, and I'm incredibly thrilled that you're tuning into another episode. Today is a treat. A new, suddenly good friend of mine, Mr. Casey J. Cox, who's been on the podcast, episode 120, I believe. I've been on his podcast, I think it's episode 1 billion, because the man's been podcasting for so long, was kind enough to introduce me and today's guest. And I want you to imagine for a moment how valuable it would be to pick the brain of somebody who roomed with Jack Nicklaus's son in college. How valuable would it be to pick the brain of somebody who not only developed a friendship with Jack Nicklaus, but played 18 holes with him at Augusta of all places? Well, as I alluded to, you are in for a treat today. Our guest is Mr. Joe Wessel, who, by the way, basically lives in my backyard in Tampa, getting a round of 18 together in early January. That might have already happened depending when I actually push this show live. But Joe is, get this, incredible background. Former Florida State walk-on who became a special teams All-American, assassin, still has the record for number of special teams touchdowns to this day. He then spent 13 years coaching at the highest levels of college and professional football, including stints at LSU, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, and with the Philadelphia Eagles. After leaving coaching, he's built a successful career in banking and leadership, where he's known as much for his mentoring and overpaid psychologist role as he is for his business results. Now, a lot of our conversation will touch on the learning lessons from his playing days under Coach Bobby Bowden, but the vast majority of this conversation touches on his experience with Jack Nicklaus, rooming with Jack Nicklaus's son, and the incredible book that he wrote. Joe is the author of White Fang and the Golden Bear, a powerful story that weaves together his relationship with his own father, his time rooming with Jack Nicklaus's son Steve at Florida State, and the lessons he learned watching Jack compete, lead, and prioritize his family. Joe's work sits at the intersection of faith, family, leadership, and high performance on the field, the course, in business, and at home. So without further ado, let's dive in. Please help me welcome Mr. Joe Wessel to the show. Joe, you saw firsthand how meticulous Jack was in his preparation. And I'm curious, where do you think his competitive advantage really came from? His preparation, his beliefs, his standards, or just something else entirely?
I think just when you say that, it may not have, I'd seen it in person, but knowing golfers, being around professional athletes, there's a portion to their job and what they do that is innate, and then there's other things that can be learned. One of the things that I had heard over the years, that a professional golfer during his swing can make maybe 1 to 2, high and 3 adjustments during the swing. Jack, I had heard, could do 5 or 6. And so you can't teach something like that. It's like looking at Bo Nix last night or any professional quarterback. How did he see that guy? Why did he throw it there? Some people have the ability to just innately see things and in football get away from somebody or make a tackle. In golf, the ball's not moving, so everything is built on the swing. And so I think that is one thing that he was, it was innate to him. Secondly, he was a great athlete. He played football. A lot of golfers, they, especially nowadays, even in the women's side of golf, they start when they're 8 years old, 10 years old, and they go and they don't play anything else. They're not, great athletes. So I think that's, to answer your question, That's where I would put it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've got the category of he just possesses the intangibles that, he's born with genetics, gift, talent, all under that umbrella. But you're right. He's a well-rounded athlete, which develops such acuity in his self-awareness, but then you get the motor control, the hand-eye coordination, and the ability to react and respond appropriately in different situations. Now, what I find really funny, and you don't know this, is I'm a diehard Redskins fan. So hearing you reference Bo Nix last night, my audience knows that it's December 1st as Joe and I are having that conversation, and last night was a tough, bitter one amongst a tough season, to say the least.
I had no horse in the race, and I went upstairs because when it got to overtime, I said, I got to go to bed. I even opened it up and turned it on in bed. So I watched the whole thing at the end. It was a great finish. Not on the Washington side, that's for sure.
But hey, with all the injuries and the way the season's been, it was a strong fight, which I'm proud to see of that.
Very
but
much.
Coming back to Jack, though, he's so prepared. He's got the intangibles. He's a well-rounded athlete. In your mind, what do you think allowed him to sustain that fierce competitiveness and drive to continue his pursuit of excellence?
Again, I think people are born to have that. My dad and I used to make conversation about single-mindedness and how many people get the opportunity to not only do what they're passionate for in life, but have the single-mindedness to stay locked in. Now, there's a bad part to that too. They don't have the well-rounding. Everything is about their work, or everything is about the thing that they're single-minded to. And, you can take that in a lot of different ways. That's why marriages fall apart. That's why relationships. And one of the things that Jack was able to do, and he made this basically a point with his wife, Barbara, that he would not ever be on the road more than 2 weeks without coming home and seeing his kids and his family. So as we, wrote the book, knowing that about Jack and his family, it kind of helped us with the book, because my book is about my own family and my father and his background. So it really is and that was back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when private jets weren't, private jets nowadays. I mean, Arnie and Jack probably were the first couple of them that teed up the private jet after a tournament. So I think that's one of the things that I was very, very enamored to, that Jack was so thoughtful of his family. He knew he had a job to do, but he wasn't going to let his family be the sacrificial lamb of his success. And I think that's so important, because you know what? Later in life, Coach Bowden used to say, I can't take all the national championship trophies with me into the grave. They're not, and he was very Christian, very Catholic, Christian-minded. And he said, I can't take these trophies to heaven with me. And so I think that's the one thing. And even I put in the book, the first night I ever met him was in our apartment building after the first game of the year or second game of the year. And he walked in between about 12 or 15 people that were standing in our apartment, grabbed me by the shirt, literally an arm, and walked me to the back room. And the first words out of his mouth, the first time I met him, he says, how are you two getting along? And it told me and laid the foundation that, more importantly, for his visit up there and the game and his golf and all of it, how is his son and his roommate getting along? And it's just spelt a lot and showed, what was in his heart about his family.
How do you think his willingness to prioritize his family served and supported his success, especially when he was away? Like how did that shape who he became on the course and the success he had?
Well, again, that's hard for me to say. You'd have to ask, each kid, but he credits Barbara for, taking care of things. But, all golfers and tennis players and people that are on the road, even CEOs and even myself, national sales manager. So I travel an awful lot. So, there are sacrifices to the family and they have to understand it. They have to know it. They have to accept it. And, but you have a
Mm.
responsibility too. And the times that you can get to home and you can spend the time, then you have to make that happen. And I think he wound up doing it. From what I hear, he never missed.
I love that you said that, because something that has become a theme on our show as of late is the need for honest communication, specific about what you want, why you want it, and then first and foremost, honest communication with yourself, but then your family, your loved one, those most important. And as you're alluding to, Barbara and his kids were aware of Jack's mission, his purpose. And when he was away, he was intensely focused on that. Yet when he was home, he was intensely present with them, knowing the role family played in his success, and also knowing from your entrepreneurial success and being around other successful individuals how broken families can be, how someone can fall victim to work at the neglect of their family. What's the advice, the wisdom you share with somebody listening who's struggling with being all in on their business or their golf pursuits and struggling to make it all work with their family as well?
It's no different in life and in business. It's it's time management. It's putting things
Mm.
down and prioritizing and making sure that family is part of that is on the calendar. And it's got to be a high priority. And if you do make those high priority things about the family and the relationship, then it's going to happen. Because
Yeah.
I've never met a successful person that is looking for something to do. They're always busy, right? They always got
Yeah.
something. It's always, juggling this or that. So I do believe that and I've seen it in business. Never forget that, people ask me all the time, how in the world did you get from football into the banking world? And it was just sheer luck. But the one thing that I realized is that I didn't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just had to get
Mm.
people to do the things that they needed to do and to delegate. And then I was there for managing people and helping them, because my motto in life got laid out very early. If I can help people get what they want, then I'll get what I need. And I
Mm.
only need certain things in life. Everybody has wants, but the needs, if you can help the needs and get the needs taken care of in life, then all the wants may creep in. They may not ever get there, but it's not going to be as important. So if your need is to satisfy your wife, your family with your time, then you're going to make that happen.
That's really well said. I love specifically how you phrase, if you focus on satisfying the wants of others to meet your needs, everything you want inevitably is going to make itself known, or you think you said creep in. That's so beautiful and powerful. And it shifts the pressure and the expectation away that allows you to be more present in that pursuit of helping others.
Right. And look at, again, the many people that go through those life changes, and how are they successful doing it? Not to put anything on Tiger, but he had some struggles there, and it happened. Different things transpired, and unfortunately, everybody knows about that. In
Hmm.
business and in personal lives, we see it every day. Oh my gosh, that poor guy, whatever happened, or, he got in a car wreck, and people are getting divorced, or all of that. So it's one of those things that I think, if you just continue to understand and know what the needs are, then you can attack it and you can put it
Mm,
into your calendar and into your life. But you can
yeah.
jump out of your business life and go to the family life, and you can maintain that back and forth. And I think it's just so important.
Yeah, and underneath all this, I keep coming back in my own words, preparation. It's preparation and intention here. Preparing to be all in when you're working on your business or whatever you're doing in your respective craft. And then simultaneously, you're so prepared, you're able to execute well, and it frees you up to be just as prepared, present, and intentional when with your family. And the synergy between the two allows you to go far and impact others.
Yep, no question. I mean, in football, coaches, they they'd stay there, they would do stuff, and we'd stay till 12 at night. We'd be
Yeah.
back in there at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. Some of them would go till 2:30 in the morning. Sometimes it's overthought too. You
Hmm.
think about it way too much. And you know, I, they made a comment last night. What's his name's Peyton's list of
The play sheet.
the play sheet's gotten to be a poster board instead of a sheet of plays. But the bottom line is coaches do that all the time. And sometimes you got to just, accept the fact this is what we're doing. This is the plan. And let's see what happens. And we'll make the adjustments as we go. And that's the thing we all do in life. It doesn't always go like you plan. And so it's one of those things that I took from the coaching profession, and I drew it in to, you know what, let's go down this path. Let's go see what it is and not think twice. And then everybody band together and let's go do it. So, and sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't, but you made exceptions and you made those audibles. I'll use the term, and you create a new path, or you add to or delete from. So there's a lot of uh, sports analogies that people in business, I try to downplay it because, the people around me now have been with me for 16 years and 9 years prior to in my other, and they over the while, I know they get kind of tired of the football analogy, so I try to come up with other ones.
I like what you said there because I often come back to success is built upon doing the same boring things over and over longer than your competition. Yet that can invite in a threat of shiny object syndrome. We're just so bored with doing the bored things that are working well. We need that novelty, that stimulus, and it can invite in complacency. And I know you have your own experience, relationship with complacency back from your playing days. And I'm curious, share a little bit more about your collegiate playing days, where and how you might have seen yourself getting complacent and what you learned about adjusting your standards and how that's carried with you all of these years later.
Well, I had no complacency whatsoever when I was playing. I was a walk-on. I walked on in 1979. I was a quarterback in high school and a quarterback in prep school at Fort Union Military Academy. And at Florida State, my sister was playing volleyball there, and Coach Bowden saw a
Huh.
film on me, and
Yeah.
he said, "Yeah, you were number 18." And I was like, he was the first head coach that really kind of took an understanding or a liking to what he saw in the film. And so I walked on, and I had to work every day. I mean, I was not the true talented person. And so my junior year, I started my first game, and I let a bomb go over my head, and I had Ernest Biner on a 3-yard line. I was going to tackle him, and I fell flat on my face, and he trotted into the end zone. And the defense coordinator told me on the phone, he said, "Get your butt on the bench, and if you move from there, you'll never play here again." And that's how mad he was. And so long story short, I got fired after that game. I traveled a little bit the rest of the year as a backup, but I never played in a game. And so the whole story is that I came back my senior year, and I was the 15th free safety going into my senior year. One guy got hurt, another guy flunked out, another guy didn't really prepare, and I became a special teams All-American. I started 4 games my senior year, and I still hold the couple of records for block kicks and touchdowns off of block kicks. And so, it again doesn't always work out how you think, but if you keep persevering and you keep saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not going to quit," then stuff can happen. It doesn't always work out that way. I was trying to persevere in my coaching career, but uh, the man upstairs pulled me out after 13 years. I had a great run at LSU, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Philadelphia Eagles, and I was in banking after 6 months. So, it's just one of those things. You got to, as the path leads you, sometimes there's a fork in the road, as Yogi said, take the fork.
It's so interesting though, because there's part surrender. Okay, listening to the man upstairs, your unique faith as a listener, whatever it is you kind of touch and connect with to kind of get that extra guidance. There's the persistence, the lack of complacency to keep trying, keep remaining persistent. How did you know when to continue pushing, like you just exemplified in your college career, and then suddenly after 13 years of coaching, know it was time to take that new path?
There was a couple things, that just kind of moved, were put in place. The first one was my wife walked up to me and said, "I only have one more move in me," and I said, "I love you too." And so she had her fill of the coaching profession and moving around, and I get that. So back to the family, that was one. But every coach, I think even in every job, now, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? I mean, football coaches are very smart people. They have graduate degrees sometimes. Some of them, a guy that was with me, Rick Minner, at Notre Dame, he became a financial advisor and then got back into coaching. So it's one of those things. At what point in time and what would I ever do if I wasn't coaching? And so everybody thinks about it, but whether they make that jump to the business world or going to do something, they all think about it because, again, it's a grind. I mean, it is a big, big grind, no matter what sport you are, whether it's a high school coach, whether it's college coach or NFL. It's a tough grind on a day-to-day basis.
So let's build off of that. The grind, the preparation, the monotony, the day in, the day out. You had, I don't even know if privilege, honor, what the right word is, the opportunity to share around with Jack. And I imagine you observed so much. So my 2-part question for you here is, 1, what stood out during that 18-hole experience? And then 2, what did you specifically observe about his preparation and his routines during that round?
Again, it wasn't competition. It wasn't, we were up there because I had a putter of his, and I gave it back to him at Steve's 40th birthday party. And so in my book, I explained the whole story to that.
Yep.
And he was just, he didn't surprise me a single bit because I knew of him. I asked him for permission to write the book because I was going to write about his family. I was going to write about him and personal stuff about him and his family. And so when he said, "Sure, I'd be happy to help you," and he wrote the foreword, and I never expected anything different because, again, he was a part of my life in a different way, not deeply involved, but I would run into him every once in a while at a tournament. Steve was my roommate for 2 years just by happenstance. And he was so gracious the whole time. He was gracious with my dad. My dad was in his early 70s at the time. And he was telling us about the golf course. He was telling us about, different stories that he had. And we talked about business. We talked about different things like that because I was in the banking business at that point in time. And he asked the same question. Hey, why did you get out of coaching? All of the things that he looks at and we look at him, they're just as wanting to know about the normal people that, you know, and so I think it was I wasn't surprised at all. And he was
Mm.
so gracious of walking us around and telling us a lot about the golf course and, saying, well, this thing happened here and this happened there. And, of course, it
Mm.
was just a great, basically 2 days.
Yeah, what a neat experience. Is there a moment that still stands out to you this day, all this time later, that maybe just still you're in awe or admiration of
Yeah.
him, the individual, or the time you shared together that special 2 day period?
Yeah, there's several different things that I write in the book, but one of the things that happened afterwards, we left the grounds and he had a golf course that he was creating across I-20 there in Augusta, and it was called, I think, the Legends course or the Champions, uh, and it was 9-hole Gary Player, 9-hole Arnold Palmer, and 9-hole Jack Nicklaus,
Huh.
and he had to go and do a site visit. So we were walking with him and hearing and listening to him. Hey, this is what I'm trying to feel of this fairway. And so we walked every hole and listened to what he was trying to. And a couple of the other people were the designers and they're taking notes as he's talking. Well, we get to this par three and there's a shot over the water and it's an hourglass green, but there was a tree over here on the left hand side and it looked like that there was a duck blind back in the day and it was just in the tree. And he turns to the guys and they were like, what are we going to do about that? And they were just sitting there and nobody said anything. And, I said, if I was doing something about it, I'd put a dummy up there with a gun and put some decoys out in the lake. And he looked at me with this pensive look and he's like shook his head and he thought about it and he turned to the guy that was writing that, hey, put that down. We might do that. And so it turned out that it was so, an obvious thing. It had nothing to do with golf, but that was kind of a unique part to it.
Did it ever end up happening for sure?
I have not been back there. I don't know. Next time I
we
go to
gotta use.
Augusta, I got to go look. I've always the times that I have gone back, and I've been to the tournament 4 or 5 times. We're always doing something, and we're always on time constraints. So I've never been over to the golf course to see what transpired there.
Well, for those of you listening, if you've been, please check that hole. Is the dummy there? The decoy ducks there? We need to know because that's hysterical. So funny. And I hope it came to fruition.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Now, one of the core driving principles to write this book that you alluded to is just the unique relationship between father, son, one family to another here. And you have had such an incredible opportunity to witness somebody succeed at the highest of levels, yet also be such an incredible family man by all accounts. You know him better than most of us here. What's one thing you've taken away yourself as you've continued this pursuit of excellence from, your collegiate career, your coaching career, to now your professional career, about being a father and how that has shaped you as a man and ultimately influenced your success in your career?
One of the things that I tell people as I counsel, I used to say that was a psychologist without a degree, an overpaid psychologist without a degree at my other company, and 16 years here. But I think one of the things that I am really implore on people's thought processes, we tend to grow up and we tend to look at different people, as our heroes in life. And whether they did something, they've created something, or there's a connection that you want to be somewhat like that person.
Okay.
And some people go their whole life searching for that. Sometimes, and in my situation, it took me writing this book that it was my hero was living with me every day of my life. And coming away
Mm.
from writing this book, my hero wasn't Jack Nicklaus. My hero wasn't Bobby Bowden. It wasn't any football player that I ever coached, but it was my father. He went in the war at 16 years old. He was turning 17. That's eighth grade. And I could just see, and I put in the book, my German grandmother standing there at the kitchen sink. And she made a mandate to him of, you are either going to stay in school or you're going in the war. And he thought very quickly, girls going to the war. And so he went to the war. He left in eighth grade to go fight for our country. And we were at a wedding in New Orleans for my cousin, and we went to the World War II museum. And my kids were maybe like 10 and 8, maybe 12 and 10. And so here's my whole family standing at the map where at the museum you can go through the Pacific side or you can go through the European theater. And then it comes to this big map that pulls back. And as you look at it, to know and see what was all going on at the same time, it's most heart wrenching and
Huh.
unbelievable thing that it could be happening. And so he's telling us where they landed in the Philippines and then Guam and all of these different things. He's telling us stories. At the end of it, we had two kids crying. My wife was crying. I had tears in my eyes because there was my hero, and I didn't even realize it at that time. But the book really kind of came out with everything and the families. Sometimes don't be searching long distance. There's heroes around us every day, and you can find those
Yeah.
heroes in your life. You just got to be looking for them. So,
So flipping it now, I know there's a lot of dads, a lot of moms listening
yep.
who have the opportunity to potentially be that hero for their son or their
The other
daughter.
part
And me, myself,
is
I am still a
from a book
relatively new dad. I've
standpoint,
got a
I
1-year-old
think one of the
here.
things that I could
Drawing
take
upon all of
away
your
is
wisdom personally, is what would you share with those parents who have the opportunity to be the hero when it comes to putting their best foot forward to parent their son or daughter?
I think one of the things, and you made a comment earlier of, authentic conversations, people speaking, tell your story. It's one of the other things that I implore people, and I ask them
Mm.
at the end of any book signing or client entertainment that I do. And I just ask them a quick question and I say, have you written down your story? It doesn't have to be a published book, it could be on a napkin, but your kids and your grandkids that you don't even know yet and your great grandkids are going to want to know the stories of your life, who you were,
Hmm.
what you were. And if you don't tell somebody and if you don't write it down, it's not going to get pushed down to those people that want to know. And so I really kind of push people to tell your story. There's a lot of different ways: the phone, the recordings, the podcasts, all of the things that we have right now. My father didn't have that. I saved close to every letter that he ever sent to me. And so I picked up on that with the book too. And he didn't talk about it. The people coming back from war were not talking about the war. Even to this day, they kind of either want to get rid of it from their minds because it was such a trauma to them, or they don't feel, people, my dad was very uh, uh, individually kind of I don't even know what to say, quiet towards it. He would not
Yeah.
explain in detail. His favorite saying
Mm,
was, I wasn't a hero. The heroes are the people that we left over there in the islands
mm,
buried, and the people that died at Pearl Harbor. So it's just one of those things that I think we're in a different era of life where people talk about their lives and talk about their
yeah.
issues. Where back then it just wasn't spoken towards. They just didn't feel like they needed to get it out. So, and I have some of that too. I'm not the best fulfilling person to tell my wife, and my kids, but I did make it a. Um, I always knew my dad loved me, but
Yeah.
uh, he had a a thing in a way about him. He would hit me in the arm, or he would give me a rat bite in my thigh, or and he would say, "Hey, that's for nothing. Wait till you do something." Because he wanted to create that path that he didn't
Yeah.
want me to follow in his footsteps. And so he
Mm,
recognized deep in his back of his brain the things that he did. He didn't want me to follow in those footsteps. And that punch in the arm was always the reminder, hey, that don't do it as I do, but do as I say.
yeah. Really, really neat. I appreciate you sharing that. As I look again, young father here, one of the things I did for my son's birthday is I wrote him a long handwritten letter, just kind of sharing what happened his first year, what I went through. And I know down the road it will be a wonderful keepsake to help him really get to know me when he's old enough to understand and really digest it all. So I love hearing you say that because I agree.
That's a great
I
thought, and you don't know how much that's going to help out because you know we lost a child at Notre Dame at birth, and
mm,
that whole story's in the book too. Back
yeah,
to things that don't work out the way you think. You think you go into a hospital and you're going to come home with the groceries, and unfortunately, we didn't that time. And it gave me the opportunity and the understanding of what life really is. And we were blessed with two boys after that. So, it's you never know when it's going to be over for yourself or
yeah.
the next person or any of your relatives. So it's good that you did that. And I would encourage that for all of the dads out and moms out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that too. And, I love to hear you share it with such a persistence and a gratitude mindset there, because I can only imagine how significantly challenging it was for you and your wife at the time. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here because we haven't had. I joked with you before we hit record. There's 15 podcast conversations in your story, your book here, but I want to touch a little bit more on your experience at Florida State. And you had this audacious, incredible leader in Coach Bowden that you had the pleasure of playing for those years. And I'm curious, we get this outside perspective, especially me. I'm a different generation. I hear all the things. I saw very little of his coaching. What have you taken away specifically through the lens of leadership and even fatherhood from your time playing for Coach Bowden?
I was blessed with, I'll say, three real good coaches, and then one that is a Hall of Famer that still has the winning record in the NFL. I didn't. Uh, I saw him from afar. I didn't play for him or coach for him, but in order, when you look at Bobby Bowden and you look at Lou Holtz, there were two people in my playing and my coaching ranks that they were very similar. They were friends, and they went on a bunch of trips together in the off season,
Hmm.
and so they were kind of in the same uh, boat that how they addressed things. They they address things as a CEO does, and so therefore
Mm,
everybody sitting around the staff meeting had this. You had. The schedule. You have uh, teachers and uh, tutoring. You have, and so each thing that has to happen, he put his the the uh, the lieutenants, and they put the jobs out there and made them. The coordinator coordinated the defense, the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just managed the table. And I believe that Coach Bowden really did a lot of that. On the defensive side, we didn't see Coach Bowden very much. He was an offensive-minded guy. He stayed, 80%. Well, he was involved with the offense all the time. Coach Holtz was more that way. Bill Arnsparger was the first coach that I coached under. He gave me my first job at LSU, and he was the same way. But Bill was very detailed, very, very detailed. And, he had so much knowledge of the game and understanding of players from a pro side. So I really felt, that I had three great people that I learned from, that I could take anything that
Yeah.
they were doing in football, and I did the same things in my business world, because
Yeah.
it manages the same way. And then Coach Shula, I grew up with the Miami Dolphins. My high school was attached to it. I am
Ah.
so grateful for uh, Don Shula's wife and Bill Arnsparger's wife, because it laid a platform for the rest of my life. Because they were
Mm.
friends of my mother's. They played cards together, and so
Mm.
I was able to be around the Dolphins and work at the Dolphins. And when I was going into coaching, uh, Don Shula came over to me. He says, "I hear you're going to try this coaching thing out." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, all I can do is give you a little bit of advice. The day you think you know it all is the day you should quit." And so it laid a foundation for me of, you know what, if he's saying that he's learning for life. He's a lifelong learner, and I'm the same way. I can learn something. I'm gonna walk out that door and I'll probably learn something new every day. I don't have to
Yeah.
be the smartest person in the room. So I think that's one of the things that really people, uh, I think, when they are successful, most of the time, they have a room, they have a locker room, they have a coaching table that's filled with a lot of really good people and knowing what to do, and they're getting the job done. Because a head coach gets
Yeah.
way too much uh, the celebration, and he gets way too much of the torture. But that's life in general from that standpoint.
I love what you said there, because I think many listeners are guilty of continuing to be the big fish in the small pond. Perhaps they're the lowest handicap, the best golfer in their group. And that's all well and good until it's not, because if you're not playing with individuals who are better than you, you're missing out on an opportunity to learn how they approach the game, how they think, how they navigate course management, what their routines look like, how they bounce back from an OB or a poor shot. And just like you mentioned, the best of the best are always trying to be the small fish in the large pond of learning and opportunity to go and grow, to avoid some of the mistakes that their elders or other individuals have made, so that they can have a bigger impact as well.
Exactly. It's all about how in golf, what do they say? You're only as good as your bad shot. I
Yeah.
mean, if your bad shot's just a little bit off, that's great. If it's
Yep.
great, then you've got problems. But because everybody's going to get there. Everybody's going to have tragedy in their life. No one's been perfect. No one's going to get everything that they want or need. It's the continual battle of life. And, I think, again, it gets back to perseverance and a
Yeah.
understanding of having, you got to have your priorities, but there's other things outside those priorities that you may have to move up and down in your priority list during your life. And that's just, how we all kind of get through this thing we call, life.
I hear recalibration or reordering of priorities. And I love how you frame that there, because I think, and I know this is just speaking personally, there have been many times in my life where I've struggled to give myself permission to reprioritize. And it's been just, you have to learn, you make the mistake, you learn the lesson, and you do your best not to repeat the same mistake here. But I love how you frame that as, yeah, there's an opportunity to continue to shuffle through priorities, but it seems at the core, we didn't even say this, but it needs to be said, is just being a good, respectable person, prioritizing your family, those you love, and then whether you're in your sport, your business, or with your family, you're prepared, you're persistent, and you're intentional.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's funny that we're even talking and using the word, because in my prayer podcast that I listen to sometimes on my way in, he talked about the word priority. It was formulated in the 600s, okay? And it was a priority. Who was your priority? What's your priority? And it's only been in this later time that we now make it a plural word. So the priority, what's your priority? And that was basically your creator, your God, your faith, what you do and who you do. And it's all about the person. What's my priority in life? What's my priority? But now we all say, you got to get your priorities right. You got to get your priorities right. Well, you know what? You better start a priority, then have a second priority and a third priority, because you can't do all of them at one time. That's just impossible. So I think, again, laying the foundation starts a house, brick by brick, priority, take a priority at a time. Don't try to grab a whole bunch of priorities and try to straighten them out, because you're going to fail. So take them one at a time and move down that priority list.
Yeah, I love that. So well said. A timely reminder we all need. And unfortunately, there's not enough time in the day to keep picking your brain. So we will do a part 2, but I have to get you out of here on this question, Joe. I love to ask this question, and I'll set you up for success here. We've talked about so many angles of conversation today. There's been fatherhood, leadership, learning lessons from Jack, family, Coach Bowden. So you can answer this through whatever lens feels best. But I want you to imagine there is a billboard in the middle of a golf course. It is viewable by all 18 tee boxes. And you have the opportunity to put a simple message on that billboard for all golfers to see. What are you writing on that billboard?
Ooh. On the tee box, huh? So they're going to have time to read it. It's not a drive-by. I'd say faith, family gets you down the middle of the fairway, and a birdie every time.
Faith and family gets you down the fairway, and a birdie every time. I love that. Unique to you, Joe. Where can everybody go to get the book we keep talking about and alluding to, which I have to stress is a must read? Where can they go to buy it?
It's White Fang and the Golden Bear. Needless to say, Jack Nicklaus's name is the Golden Bear, and the putter was named White Fang by all the reporters. But Amazon, some Barnes & Nobles have it, but mostly on Amazon. And it's whitefangbook.com. You can see the website there, but you can't buy the book there at this point. We're getting that up ramped in the next year or so. It hasn't been a priority yet, so Amazon's the place to go. But it's White Fang and the Golden Bear, and there's some pictures in there to help, and people have really enjoyed it. And I do say one thing, and especially to some of the females, bring a box of tissue when you read it, because it'll pull on the strings a little bit too. So.
It will, and it's so well written. There's so many, as you heard Joe and I allude to, learning lessons that are applicable through every lens of life, through every avenue of life, just from the stories, and Joe being able to extract his own learning lessons and insights from these experiences. Joe, such a treat to connect and have this conversation. Thank you for joining me.
You too. I appreciate you having me on, and hope everybody has a good mindset after this.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, thank you for tuning into another episode. So much value, so much novelty, wisdom, and heartfelt emotion in today's conversation. So do yourself a favor. Go back and listen again. Go purchase the book, make it a priority, and dig into this. There's a lot of application here that goes far beyond the golf course to help shape you into the best version of yourself, to leave such a lasting positive impact on those around you, your spouse, and especially your children. And if you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's show. Thank you again for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
See you. Thanks, Paul.